US President Joe Biden has condemned the attacks against Israel. He spoke just a short time ago.
Today, the people of Israel are under attack, orchestrated by a terrorist organization, Hamas. In this moment of tragedy, I want to say to them and to the world and to terrorists everywhere that the United States stands with Israel. We will not ever fail to have their back. We'll make sure that they have the help their citizens need and they can continue to defend themselves. You know, the world's seen appalling images. Thousands of rockets in the space of hours raining down on Israeli cities. When I got up this morning and started this at 7:30, 8 o'clock, my calls. Hamas terrorists crossing in Israel, killing not only Israeli soldiers, but Israeli civilians. In the street, in their homes, innocent people murdered, wounded, entire families taken hostage by Hamas. Just days after Israel marked the holiest of days in the Jewish calendar. It's unconscionable. You know, when I spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu this morning, I told him the United States stands with the people of Israel in the face of these terrorist assaults. Israel has the right to defend itself and its people, full stop. There's never justification for terrorist attacks. And my administration's support for Israel's security is rock solid and unwavering. Let me say this as clearly as I can. This is not a moment for any party hostile to Israel to exploit these attacks to seek advantage. The world is watching. I've also been in contact with the King of Jordan, spoken with members of Congress, directed my national security team to engage with their Israeli counterparts, military to military, intelligence to intelligence, diplomat to diplomat, to make sure Israel has what it needs. I've also directed my team to remain in constant contact with leaders throughout the region, including Egypt, Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Oman, the UAE, as well as our European partners and the Palestinian Authority. It's also a terrible tragedy on a human level. It's hurting innocent people. Seeing the lives that have been broken by this, the families torn apart, it's heartbreaking. And Jill and I are praying for those families who've been impacted by this violence. We grieve with those who've lost their loved ones, lost a piece of their soul. We have hope for swift recovery for many who have been wounded. But we're going to remain in close touch with Prime Minister. I personally am going to remain in close contact with Prime Minister Netanyahu as this situation continues to develop. And let there be no mistake, the United States stands with the state of Israel, just as we have from the moment the United States became the first nation to recognize Israel 11 minutes after its founding 75 years ago.
US President Joe Biden, Sky News Washington correspondent Annalise Nielsen joins us with some of the global reactions now. The attacks are being widely condemned by world powers.
Tim, they have been widely condemned, but much like it seems to have caught Israel and US security officials by surprise, much of the world is just reacting as we watch this unfold. First to our Foreign Minister Penny Wong, who has tweeted, Australia unequivocally condemns the attacks on Israel by Hamas, including indiscriminate rocket fire on cities and civilians. We call for these attacks to stop and recognise Israel's right to defend itself. Australia urges the exercise of restraint and protection of civilian lives. To the UK, Rishi Sunak has tweeted, the Prime Minister there, I am shocked by this morning's attacks by Hamas terrorists against Israeli citizens. Israel has an absolute right to defend itself. And Volodymyr Zelensky from Ukraine has also tweeted, Israel has the full right to defend itself against terror as any other state, and it's critical that the whole world responds to terror in a unified and principled manner. Here's Erdogan from Turkey.
In light of the events that have occurred in Israel this morning, we call on all sides to act with restraint, to stay away from impulsive moves that will heighten the tension further.
From the US side, by those comments made by President Joe Biden, it is quite clear there will be support coming from the US into this conflict, which is likely to drag out for at least a couple of weeks, judging by just what we know so far. But at the same time, US is somewhat hampered by its own internal political issues. Right now, Congress can't convene. Group of 8 can't convene with the Speaker, who technically, as an interim Speaker, can't be briefed on these highly classified security briefings, although that could be determined differently, that is still unprecedented because we are in an unprecedented time with US Congress. At the same time, there is no session until they convene this new speaker. So as for any funding going their way, that's going to be a critical issue. The Pentagon has been convening CENTCOM meetings, which is their own internal security analysts who are looking into the next steps from here. But this is going to be a huge test for the Biden administration, particularly. Republicans have been highly critical of the fact that they've just paid $6 billion to Iran, saying that that money used to secure the release of US prisoners has now helped fund this. Now, this has been disputed by the US government, by the Biden administration. They say that that money was separate, but Republicans say it was fungible, and there's no way that money hasn't been making its way to assist in this conflict.